When I see someone that's homeless, I always wonder what the backstory is that led to where they are.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
You have produced an amazing documentary and now a drama. Could you talk to me about, how it came about?
Yeah. So Robert Craig Films is a film company that really focuses on providing films that provide more compassion and empathy to the audiences. And so we set out to make a movie called No Address. And it's about a group of individuals that fall into homelessness unexpectedly. And as we really navigated through this screenplay and started looking at what we wanted to film, we said, we want to make sure this is authentic. And so as producers, we set out actually to research and study, what we call the American crisis. And so actually the team took a bus tour for 3 weeks across the country to 20 major cities that had high levels of homelessness across 18 states, and conducted a tremendous amount of interviews, actually over 175 interviews with, political leaders and nonprofit leaders and the medical field, and just a full gamut to really create an unbiased view of what the bleak realities of homelessness look like. And really what we found is we thought it would be very a lot of what's the problem is, and why we got here, but we found so many solutions. And it was very uplifting and very hopeful to see how many amazing programs that are out there that are doing great work. And so we came back and we had all this great B-roll. SAG strike hit and said, well, we have nothing else to do but maybe head into the editing room. And it turned into this phenomenal documentary, Americans with No Address.
Well, I love that because, you guys discovered kind of the problem, but you're like, let's think of the solutions, and you were presented with them by doing, research of going out there, and then you took that and made it into a drama. So that's kind of a really cool pairing that you've done that.
Yeah, it just the stories inspired us. So while it's a fictional feature film, it really is inspired by true events, and so we see in the movie, you see a very successful businessman played by Billy Baldwin, who has a couple of bad deals, starts to gamble, to try and save his home and his family, and kind of finds himself in this economic situation that we can see that, it could happen to anyone. A couple other storylines, one of the main storylines is a failed foster care system. I know we see this all the time in California. 1 of every 3 foster youth go into homelessness after they turn at the age of 18 out of the system. We have veterans in it. We focus on addiction, mental health, all the gateways into homelessness. And the goal for us is to showcase these stories that this could happen to anyone, and that really garner that empathy and the compassion that we need to have around this situation.
How do you feel like these films, and specifically the drama, can kind of reach people's heart in this way, in this medium?
Yeah, I think one of the neat things that when we started filming it, we filmed it in the Sacramento region, all of the actors came up and said, is there a way we could walk the homeless encampments? Are there a way we can go to some shelters and speak with individuals experiencing homelessness? And I love that they wanted to do that. And I think at one point, they thought maybe it's to get themselves into character. And really, if you were to ask them today, it was a profound experience for all of them. And all of them became very engaged in their own communities after filming.
How do you feel like the power of faith can kind of impact this situation?
Yeah, obviously faith is just surrounds us in the way that we treat human beings. And I think our message here is, these are human beings. They're people like just you and I, and they're God's people, just like you and I. And so how can we look at them differently? How can we judge? That's Jesus walking down the street for all we know, right? It's we need to have that love and compassion, lean into our faith, especially in situations like this. When I speak to individuals on the streets or in shelters, so often they feel invisible. They feel like no one loves them, no one cares for them. And so much of our messaging is, how as a Christian do you live, your life and faith, and how could you walk by an individual and look at them in disgust or not look at them at all?
Well, I love that the documentary too talked about, what the government's doing, and also what a lot of these nonprofit and many of them are faith-oriented nonprofits are doing. So I thought it was interesting to take both sides and kind of talk about what's going on in terms of that.
Yeah, it was fascinating. I think when we set out, we thought we would actually be interviewing a lot more political leaders and influential leaders within the government or state agencies. And what we truly found, like you said, 65% of the nonprofits, organizations out there that are addressing homelessness are faith-based. And so that really kind of shed this new light on us, focusing on churches, focusing on nonprofits. We, in fact, walked away from it being so moved by the solutions that are out there by these faith-based organizations that we chose as Robert Craig Films to give back 50% of the net profits from all of our productions, the movie, the documentary, and some other resources that we have to these nonprofits that are actually making a difference out there.
Wow, I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. Is there anything else that you feel like we should go over before we kind of wrap up?
Well, one of the neat things that we found in doing, obviously the movie started and then we have the documentary, but the screenplay actually for the movie won a tremendous amount of awards in the film festival realm. And so we had an author come forward and said, I would love to actually write a novel on No
wow.
Address. Yeah, so we have No Address, the novel. It's on Amazon. It was written by Ken Abraham. And Ken is a 15-time New York Times bestselling author
Wow.
and actually just the most beautiful human being. And I love the way he wrote this book because he took the screenplay and he put so much faith in there that you see these character lines so much more developed than what you can do in an hour 45-minute movie, but how strong their own faith was in driving them into a hopeful situation and bringing them to the place where they could get out of homelessness, and the stories are just really profound.
Was there anything that you were surprised by, with this whole experience? I mean, it's such an interesting thing that you guys did the documentary and you did the research and then you did the movie. Was there something that you were your eyes were open to?
Yeah, I mean, I think the numbers themselves are staggering. You know it's out there, but when you really see it, you go down on Skid Row and LA and all of this, 2.8 million individuals are homeless in our country. But I think what hurt my heart the most was that more than half of them are children.
Oh.
And that was just very difficult to see, just the innocence of a child and the situation of them being in that scenario. But then the hopeful side of these amazing organizations that create family shelters and, supportive housing and just a road to recovery for so many people. Phenomenal programs that we saw out in Texas, actually, that had incredible programs that they had schools on site. They had daycare so that parents can get jobs and start working, getting their lives back. But it was hard to see that. It's hard to see when families are suffering. And I think they're the stories we don't think they are. I think that's the other part that was surprising. We kind of put an idea of what this scenario is or what's happening in this person. But then when you find the backstory of their lives and you see a struggling family that one person just lost their job during COVID and mom stayed home with the kids and they became in this situation, it changed. I think we knew we set out in a compassionate way, but we left coming back in studying, across the country of that, we have to get better as a community, to support and, change that narrative, change the hearts and minds of people. And I'm hoping that's what this film and documentary do.
And bringing the cast together, how was that experience and finding the right people for that?
Yeah, the cast is, just the fact that they wanted to be so engaged even before the movie was phenomenal. Billy Baldwin, just leaned right in right away. He actually took everybody in the encampment and said, we're going to experience something today that I don't think any of us have ever experienced. And they prayed together and then they experienced, a couple of days of doing this. Ashanti's in the film. She plays a veteran that has some addiction issues and kind of her journey. And she's talked a lot about how it has changed her in the way that she looks and feels about things differently. We have Ty Pennington. He's phenomenal. His part in the movie is really about second chances. And so he really talks about the importance of all of us, that need to give second chances to people at all times. So it's been a phenomenal cast that are filled with faith and filled with love for this project and filled for the compassion, that we want to showcase. And like I said, we started this 2.5 years ago, and they have stayed with us all the way through the entire project. We have our big premiere to not really celebrate, but really honor the work that's being done for the last 3 years, and how we bring this message to life that this really could happen to anyone. And, unfortunately, we're seeing this with the LA fires. Who would have ever thought such tragedy, would happen here, and people are finding themselves in this situation. Yeah.
This must feel like you must feel like a great purpose in doing this project, and how wonderful it is to, produce a piece of entertainment that kind of has such meaning to it, right?
Yeah.
How do you, personally, how
Yeah.
How have you been through it?
Yeah. I mean, personally, it's just been so beautiful, to watch. I mean, you want to be able to share something with the world that can be inspiring, impactful, and make a difference. I spent the last 10 years prior to coming to Robert Craig Films working for Make-A-Wish, and that just filled my soul, of being able to help children. And I feel like this is another step into another direction that I can even help beyond that by bringing the power of film to life, and for people to really stop and think. I think when you see both the documentary for sure, and you learn what's working, what's not working, and how we got here as a country over 3 decades, as well as the feature film, I hope people will stop and really connect with the characters, and notice that could be me at any given time. It really could. And so I think that's a powerful message, and I think a lot of people will walk away with wanting to do something. That is our hope, that there's a call to action. In fact, even at the end of the feature film, the actor said, we'd love to do some call to action videos just to speak to the audience. So it ends that way before the credits, and I love that it was their idea, they wanted to do it, and we're hoping it inspires people to walk out and say, you know what, I should go volunteer somewhere. I should walk by somebody on the streets and say hello rather than turn away. I should take a step in that direction because we're all in this together.
Yeah, I love that. And thank you guys so much for doing the movie and taking this time together. And I loved, what you've done with it. And I think it's such an important thing, especially living outside of LA, because we've seen homelessness kind of increase over even the last couple of years, which is really interesting. So, I commend you for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you enjoy videos that follow your values like ours and you want to help us continue, go to movieguide.org/donate, because we're actually a nonprofit. You may not know that, but we're working in Hollywood every day to help families have more choices that follows their values. And also subscribe right now.